You Thank you kindly, Rachel Harris. You want to see more of that? Come to the next theatrical production. Alrighty, folks, let's go ahead. Make sure you get a sign off here. And date time, parents sign off. Let's do a little bit of review where we've been at. We've been talking about motions. And in motions, there's something called rigid motions and non-rigid motions. Rigid motions are things that have the same shape, but they move around. And then we have non-rigid motions where it changes shape. Alrighty, folks. So last class, we did dilations in which we actually changed the shape of things. Things were the same shape, but a different size. That is called a non-rigid motion. Whereas our three rigid motions are translation, reflection, and rotation. We've done these before. Let's just draw them out. Translation is the slide. So when you just slide things over, that's translation. Translation is a slide. Reflection is where you flip it. Flip it. Supposed to stay the same shape. I got a little bit larger there, but imagine those exactly the same shape. Then rotation is when you turn. We're going to turn just 90 degrees here. So slide, flip, turn is the motion's translation, reflection, rotation. And we're taking all of these motions and we are putting them on the XY coordinate plane. Last class, we focused strictly on dilation, and that was to change in size, you multiply. Today, we're going to be doing all three of these are rigid motions together. Okay, when you translate something, just write the word slide. We translate by a factor of horizontal and a vertical factor. So you take your x coordinate and you add your horizontal factor because that's your horizontal coordinate. You take your y coordinate and you losing track of my colors here. And you add your vertical component. So the easy way to remember this is to slide. Add to the left, add to the right. To slide. Add to the left, add to the right. To slide. Add to the left, add to the right. Let me show you what I mean. First off, let's get our three coordinates here. Okay, we have A, and A is sitting at, that is 4 and 3. And then we have B is sitting at, what is that, 7 and -1. And then we have C is sitting at 2 and -2. We are going to translate by 6 units to the left. 6 units to the left. Notice that's to the left. Then 2 units down. So technically, when you go left and down, we subtract. So for all the x coordinates, we're going to -6. And all the y coordinates, we're going to -2. Why? Because left is negative and down is negative. Okay, so we go through this, and if you do 4 minus 6, of course you end up with -2, and 3 minus 2, you're going to end up with 1. And then you plot that. -2, positive 1, and that is your A prime. Then we have 7 minus 6, positive 1. Negative 1 minus 2, negative 3, and then plot that, positive 1, negative 3. And that is going to be your B prime. Then we have positive 2 minus 6, negative 2 minus 2, and that's going to be our C prime. And connect. Now that's the mathematical way of moving this. There's also what I call the bunny hop method, which some of you might actually prefer, and it's perfectly acceptable. Let me show you what I mean by the bunny hop method. It says we're going to go 6 to the left and 2 down. So start at A and just bunny hop 6 to the left. Now go 2 down. Boom, there it is. And you do that with all your points. 6 to the left, 2 down, 6 to the left, 2 down. Both methods work. You should be familiar with the mathematical method. Once again, this is translation, and it's to slide. Add to the left, add to the right. Ready? You try. I hit the pause button here. Pause. You do this one, and then restart. And students, welcome back. Let's see, you have your 3 points there, and then we're going 4 units to the left. That means we're subtracting 4 on the x-axis, and 5 units up, we're adding 5. So our new coordinates here, that's 2 minus 4, that's negative 2, and then positive 5. Let's plot that, negative 2, positive 5. Right there, that is our B prime. And then we have here, and 2 minus 4, that's negative 2. And negative 3 plus 2, that's positive 2. So negative 2 and positive 2. That is our N prime. And then here we have 5 minus 4, that's 1. 3 plus 5, that's going to be positive 2 again. And we have 1, and that's oh my goodness, Chris. Where were we? Okay, so now we graph these 3 points. We got a 1 and a 2, and when you bring them down, that's C prime. You should have something that's exactly the same shape, but a different size. And if you just want to bunny hop in and check it, we'll just do 1. So 4 units to the left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 units up. That's E, R, San, Su, Wu. And there we go. 4 units to the left, 5 units up, and we are at our point. That is translation. To slide. Add to the left, add to the right. Then we have our 2 reflections. 2 reflections. Okay, just say this a couple times with me. To flip over the Y opposite the X. To flip over the Y opposite the X. To flip over the Y opposite the X. So what we do here is if we have our XY coordinates, to flip over the y-axis, you simply opposite the x coordinate. Now that seems like a contradiction. You'll understand it if we physically do it. Okay, so why don't you go ahead and darken the y-axis. And now let's just draw an arrow. We're going to flip over the y-axis this way. And if you notice, our motion is a horizontal motion. That's why the only thing we're going to change is the x coordinate. Let me show you what I mean. Let's get our ABCs again, and we're going to be keeping the same one, so pretty soon you'll have these memorized. And that is 4 and 3. And then we have B is at 5, no, excuse me, 7 and -1. And C is at +2, -2. To flip over the Y, we opposite the X. So you just take all your X coordinates and opposite them. So that's now -4, +3. And go ahead and plot that out. And that's A prime. And then opposite the X, that's -7, -1. It's B prime. And then we have -2, -2. And that's C prime. Connect. And you're going to have yourself an exact mirrored image, and it's mirrored across the y-axis. So to flip over the y, opposite the x. Okay. Knowing that, come down here, get your 3 coordinates. It's the same triangle. You're going to flip over the y-axis. Flip over the y-axis. Pause. Okay, students, let's check this out. Notice you should have opposite the x coordinate because we're flipping over the y-axis. So you should be mirrored across the y-axis, so you changed your x coordinates. So it's butterflied across the y-axis. So this was 2, that's now -2. That was 2, that's -2. That was 5, that's -5. To flip over the y, you opposite the x. So you have a mirrored image across the y-axis. All right, so you could probably guess what we're going to do to flip over the x. To flip over the x, opposite the y. To flip over the x, opposite the y. So if you have an xy coordinate, you simply, if you're going to flip over the x-axis, you opposite the y coordinate. Why? Because the motion you engage in is a vertical motion. So there's your x-axis. We're going to take this image and we're going to flip it vertically. That's why we change the y-axis. Let's get our 3 points here. We're going to make that A. We're going to make this B. Make this C. And we're going to flip this over the x-axis once again. So we're going that direction. So all of these, to flip over the x, you opposite the y coordinates. All of these y coordinates now go opposite. So -6, and that's going to become +4. -8. That's going to become +8. -2, and that's going to become +6. Go ahead and graph those, and when you do this, you will see you have flipped over the x-axis. Remember to mark your primes there. Once again, if you've done this correctly, you have the exact same image, but now it's mirrored or butterflied across the x-axis. The x-axis. take that same triangle and now you're going to butterfly it. You're going to reflect it over the x-axis, folks. You're going to flip it over the x-axis using the technique I just showed you. Pause. Alrighty, folks, let's see how you did here. Going this way, you should have your coordinates, same coordinates we've been using, and now you flipped across the x-axis, so you had to opposite all the y-coordinates. Some of you may have thought, what's going on with the 0? Well, you can't opposite 0. So if you have 0, it just kind of stays 0. So once again, to flip over the x, you opposite the y. Okay, so so far we've done translation and we've done reflection. Rotation I've saved for last. It's probably the trickiest, but it's the most interesting. The trickiest, but it's the most interesting. We're going to rotate 90 clockwise. Physically place that to get it in your head. Clockwise means to go to the right. Okay, and to rotate something clockwise, the first thing you do is you switch the order. So XY becomes YX. And then if we go clockwise, draw yourself a clockwise arrow, and you're going to opposite the sign. So it goes like this. To rotate 90 clockwise, switch and flip to the right. Say it with me and trace. To rotate 90 clockwise, switch and flip to the right. Okay, let's do this. This is a little tricky here, but I know you can do this. So we're going to take A. Keep that color-coded. That's going to be 4 and 3. And then B is at 7, -1, the same thing we've been using. And then C here. Okay, do this in 2 steps. That is very, very important. Do not attempt to do both motions at the same time. It's switch and flip to the right. So first we're just going to switch. So 4, 3 becomes 3, 4. 7, -1 becomes -1, 7. 2, -2 becomes -2, 2. Okay, so that's the switch. Now, we flip the sign. Watch very carefully. We're going to the right because it's clockwise. So draw an arrow to the right and flip the sign. Arrow to the right, flip the sign. Arrow to the right, flip the sign. Now let's graph those 3 new points. Yes, it goes slightly off the graph. Okay, connect them. Now, it's going to be hard to see how this is a rotation, so there's a little bit of a trick here. You have a straight edge, that's kind of handy right now. So you choose any 2 of the same points. I'm just going to use A. I'm going to choose these points. Okay, ready? Now we're going to draw a line from the origin. So what you want to do is you put your pen on your origin and let's draw a line to A. Physically draw from the origin, go to A. Now draw another line going to sub A. Now look very carefully. Sweep that. Let me shrink this closer because I think you'll see it if we get really close. See this, folks? And ask yourself, how many degrees does that look like? 90, yes. And guess what direction it's going, folks? Clockwise. So it's a little bit easier if you just choose 2 points, the same point, and from the origin, and then it's a little bit easier to see that actual rotation. So that is switch and flip to the right for rotation clockwise. Ready? You try. Same image. You're going to rotate 90 degrees clockwise. Pause. All right, let's see how you did. So there's your coordinates. And then it's switch and flip to the right. So first I switch the coordinates, then I go back. So this is going to be 0, 2. Then here I have -1, +7. And then I have -3, +2. And I go back, and because we're doing this clockwise, we go like that, switch the sign. Go like that, switch the sign. Go like that, switch the sign. Our new 3 points is going to be 0, -2. That is our sub B. And the next one is -1 and -7. So yes, it flies off the graph just a little bit. Don't be afraid if that happens. That's sub N. And then we have -3 and -2. And connect. Once again, it's a little hard to see where the rotation is here. But the best way to do this is to choose any 2 points. Hang on, students. Let me double check this. I was actually using the old points. So if your answers are different than mine, you were probably correct. Let me redo this whole thing. I was using my old points from the previous diagram. So now I'm going to be extra careful here. So that is definitely 2, 0. Switch and flip that. That's going to be 2 and then 2. And we flip to the right. That's -2. Now let's do N. N is sitting at +2 and -3. First you switch it, -3, +2. Flip the sign to the right. Then we have here our X. Our X is sitting at +5 and -3. Switch it, -3, +5, flip the sign, and there we go. Now you plot these points. 0, -2, that's more like it. Yep, okay, B prime. And -3 and -2. That's N prime. And then here our last one is -3 and -5. You connect. And once again, from the center, you can check, and you can see that B is an exact 90-degree angles, and it is clockwise, folks. Okay. Then you have rotate 90 counterclockwise. That's same concept, but now we're going to the left. So you have X, Y. You switch it. At this time, you switch and flip the sign going counterclockwise to the left. Rotate 90 counterclockwise, switch and flip to the left. Let's go ahead and get our coordinates here. Same coordinates we've been using. Okay, now we're going to rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise. It's probably a good idea just to draw an arrow which direction you're going so you know you've done it correctly. We're going this way, counterclockwise. Step one is you just want to switch. Just switch. Okay. Now draw a counterclockwise arrow, which is to the left. Flip the sign. To the left. And if it's negative, it becomes positive. Now let's graph those 3 points. Connect. Once again, it's going to be a little hard to see how this is a rotation, so what I recommend you do is choose any 2 points. I'm going to choose our C points, and we're going to draw this in from the origin to C, and then origin to sub-C, and you see if you sweep it, you hold, you got yourself in 90 degrees, and you're going counterclockwise. So to rotate 90 counterclockwise, switch and flip to the left. Ready? You try this page on your own. Alrighty, let's see how you did. So there's your original coordinates. So it's switch and flip to the left. So I'm going to switch first. Please do this in 2 separate steps. Don't do it in one fell swoop. It's too easy to get mixed up. And then you're going to draw a counterclockwise arrow. And we're going to flip the sign there, which you can't really do with 0, so just leave 0, 0. That's going to become positive right there, and that's going to become positive. Okay, so our new counterclockwise, that is 0, positive 2. There's your sub B, and N is sitting at positive 3, positive 2. That's sub N. And then our X is going to be positive 3, positive 5, sub X, connect. And once again, to see the rotation, just choose any 2 points. And just for kicks, I'm going to choose the N point here. And there's my N, and then there's my N prime. And if you sweep that, you see, behold, oh yeah, that is physically 90 degrees, and we've gone 90 degrees counterclockwise in our image. 90 degrees counterclockwise in our image. It's good to physically check those. Okay, last one. We're going to reflect over the origin and rotate 180. Guess what? It's the same thing. You'll understand why it's the same thing in just a moment. And this one's actually very easy. This is the easiest rotation. It's also the easiest reflection. You just take your XY and you opposite them both. You take your XY and you opposite both. Origin, opposite both. To flip over the origin, opposite both. You'll understand. Let's go ahead and graph this. So to flip over the origin or rotate 180, you simply opposite both. So I have 4, 3. That now becomes -4, -3. 7, -1. That's -7, +1. And last one, +2, -2. That's now -2, +2. Let's graph those 3 points. Now watch very carefully. This works really well with a straight edge. Okay, if you take a straight edge, let's just connect A to A. Okay, straight edge, connect A to A. Just realized I got C in the wrong place here. -2, +2, good call. All right, and now go ahead, using a straight edge, let's draw a line from A to A. If you've done this correctly, you've gone smack across the origin, which is 0, 0. And that would be true of everything we've done. If you take a look, again, B, edge to edge, straight across, same thing with C. That's why it's called reflecting over the origin. We're flipping over the origin. Why does it also rotate 180? Simple. Put your pencil on A. Now sweep 180. Where do you end up? Your sub A. Put your pencil on that original B. Sweep 180. See what's going on there? Sweep, C, sweep 180. So you can see that reflecting over the origin and rotating 180 is exactly the same thing. So to flip over the origin, opposite both. Alrighty, folks, you will have to memorize all these. That's why we're going to go over them in your reference booklet. I suggest you go back and just verbally rehearse this little guy with the speaker. Verbally say all of those like 3 or 4 times each. Maybe annoy your parents and siblings with your new chair. Try it out. Review on your own.